Good afternoon. My name is Richard Burke. I'm the Executive Director of Western Liberty Network, and this is the latest installment of our weekly series on how to do politics. We cover different topics every week on covering a skill that you can use in the political activism that you're engaged in. And today we're going to be talking about how to get out the vote as we approach the May 16th special district elections in Oregon. Now, before we go forward, I'm going to share the screen, and I'll take you to the Western Liberty Network website. Here are some resources that you can use. I'm going to go to the homepage first. Western Liberty Network is a 501c3 organization, and as such, we're unable to endorse candidates. We don't endorse or oppose candidates, even the ones that we train, but we do provide training to grassroots activists who want to know how to do politics more successfully. And there are some resources available right on the homepage. For example, if you need to get a hold of the state of Oregon or state of Washington county elections offices, you just click on the flag and it takes you to a page where you can get to the offices that you're concerned with. If you scroll down a little farther, you'll see advertised the next upcoming Zoom session. This is the one for today. And then we've got some news about what we've done. This was our conference in February with former NATO Ambassador Kurt Volker and others. And if you scroll down to others, you'll see different things, like here's some slideshows on how activists can use social media to support the campaigns they like, and how candidates can use social media. Here are speeches from previous conferences. Here's one by Senator Dennis Linthicum. Here's one by Christina Voltes, who is a member of the Slavic community and a city councilor up in Covington, Washington. And there are more different resources here. Now, if you want to learn specific skills and design your own curriculum, you can go to the training page. If you go to the training page, you'll find all kinds of training documents. We'll give you a couple today during the training session on various topics. You just find one that's interesting to you, like components of a campaign plan. You click on it and you'll get something like this, one of our training documents. We have about 30 of them available on different topics. They're designed to be provided with a live training, but they do stand up on their own, and they're very, very helpful. If you want to take a look at all of them, just go down to the bottom and you can download a single PDF file containing all of our training documents. None of these are copyrighted, so people can use them and distribute them freely however they like on whatever topics or group of topics they prefer. Scroll down a little further and you'll see videos like this one. This one will be posted very shortly on various topics. I provide a lot of the trainings, but we do have guest trainers, state legislators, and other experts that provide training on different topics. Providing written testimony we did last time, building your campaign team. We have over 2 years of videos that are provided on all kinds of topics, including some get out the vote ones from previous elections that you can look at if you're interested in that topic today. Dealing with the media, whatever you need. So these resources are all available free of charge from Western Liberty Network off that website. If you have a group that you'd like us to provide a training for, contact us. We don't charge for that either. Either myself or a volunteer trainer will come out and talk to a group that can provide training on any of the topics that we train on. If you like what we're doing and want to make a tax-deductible contribution, you can go to Support WLN. If you click on that page, you'll be able to use a PayPal link to make one-time contributions or regular monthly contributions. And again, all this support is tax-deductible. So there are some resources you can use to go further after today's training session. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I will send through the chat window the training document for today on getting out the vote. So let's see. They keep changing the interface on me, so I have to always adjust to that. Okay, in your chat window now, you should see the Get Out the Vote document that you can download. If you are watching this on a recording, then next to the video that you click on to see the recording, you will see a link where you can download the same document. You can also download the document on the training tab of the westernlibertynetwork.org website, as we showed you just a moment ago. And so we're going to start in on this. This is a special district election. Turnout for these elections is typically very poor, somewhere in the vicinity of 17%. That means that if you conduct even a modest get out the vote campaign, and even if it's just a few people, it can make a big difference on a number of elections, because just a few additional votes is often the difference between a winning and a losing campaign. So how do you motivate people to vote? A 2012 Stanford University study found that people are much more likely to vote in any given election if they do two things. First, they have to see voting as part of their identity. The act of voting needs to be part of their identity. People's religion is a part of their identity. People's political affiliation, their families, that's all part of their identity. So one way you can do that is if you contact someone and you happen to know them, say, Bob, I understand that you've been a Democrat or a Republican for, all your life. So you know this is important that we vote, right? And if they say yes, then you've made a connection between their identity as Libertarian, Republican, Democrat, whatever they are, and the act of voting. So, Bob, you've been a Republican for 20 years, ever since I've known you. So you know that voting in these elections is important, right? And if he says yes, you've made that connection. That's a good way to start. The second thing you need to do is ask them for a plan. What is their plan to vote? If they have a plan to vote, beyond I'll just get around it, that is a big difference. So if you say, well, Bob, it's important to vote. The ballots have been mailed out. When do you plan to vote? And if they say anything like, well, it's, my wife and I are planning to do it on Tuesday night during dinner on the kitchen table. That's a plan. Okay. If they have a plan, and if they consider the act of voting a part of their personal identity, they are 72% more likely to vote, according to the Stanford University study. So as you try to get the vote out, then bearing this in mind, you will be very successful if you, once again, link the act of voting to their personal identity and ask them for a specific plan to vote. Now, getting out the vote campaigns is a little bit harder for limited government activists than it is for people who like big government. And it has to do with the psychology. People who support limited government more than anything else just want to be left alone. And we don't like to impose ourselves on other people. And so we're reluctant to, and voting is a very private thing. So we're reluctant to call people up and interrupt their lives with a request that they do something that is a sacred and private act. I try to ask people to consider this. If you are being hesitant in any way, I urge you not to be, because our founders told us that if we are to be a self-governing society, we must govern ourselves. We're a republic, not a democracy, but our republic does have democratic features, and the democratic features require that we have an engaged populace. So what you are doing is not interfering with their lives, because you're not necessarily going to tell them how to vote, although people tend to, mobilize people who think like themselves, which is fine. But you are encouraging them to exercise their franchise. Every citizen has political power through the vote and through their ability to speak. You are speaking when you ask people to vote. You are encouraging them to use their franchise. You're encouraging them to use their power. You're doing them a favor by encouraging them to use their power, making them relevant to the things that affect their lives. Don't think of this as an imposition. Think of this as a civic responsibility to try and get people to vote. So don't be shy about doing that. So the next question is, of course, who do you ask to vote? Political parties and campaigns often have their own get out the vote campaigns. They will have banks of telephones, and they will ask you to come in, and they will ask you to make phone calls. And sometimes they'll give you an iPad with a program on it that will dial up phone numbers for you, and you use this iPad at home or wherever you are to make phone calls. There's nothing wrong with this. I encourage people to participate in get out the vote campaigns like that. I've participated in campaigns like that myself, and I've even organized and run a few of those kinds of campaigns. That's a very good thing. This training isn't about that, though. They will teach you what they want you to know and what they want you to do. This training is for an individualized getting out the vote campaign. And I believe that's important because although there are people out there, maybe you're one of them, who likes to participate and call people you don't know, asking them to vote, there are a lot of folks out there that just won't do it. You can ask them and cajole them and give them lots of reasons, but they just aren't comfortable calling people that they don't know, cold calling and asking them to vote. And you can give them a million reasons why, as I just did, as to why it's not an imposition, but a civic duty, and they just won't do it. This training is for folks like that. This training is also for people who want to do more than just the phone banks that they participate in, because this is centered on calling people you know. This is your friends, your coworkers, your family members who are all there. A lot of folks who don't feel comfortable calling a stranger will feel much more comfortable calling a friend or a coworker. You know, say, Mary, hi, this is Rich. I just got my ballot in the mail. Did you get yours? You did. Well, I'm calling all my friends to ask if they vote. I think it's important that we vote. And you know, turnout's low, so your vote will count a lot. It'll carry more weight than in a general election. So I've known you for a long time. You're conservative. We think the same way. So you agree this is important, right? And Mary might say, yes, I do. They're not going to say no typically. And then you're going to say, well, okay, I'm going to vote tomorrow. When are you going to vote? And whatever she says, you know, I'll do it over my lunch break on Wednesday. That's a plan. You succeeded in doing that. Write it down. Now you'll notice that on the third page of this document that I put in the chat window, or you can download it if you're watching this recording, you'll see a form like this. This is a form that is the third page of the document. And what it is, it's a little form. You could write down the name of the person you called, what their number was, you know, whatever information, whatever their email was, and you can make a mark. Are they registered to vote? Do they have a plan to vote? Did they get their ballot? Do they need assistance? Sometimes, you know, you can't impose your will on somebody else who's voting, but sometimes people, you know, have Parkinson's and maybe have difficulty writing. It is not illegal to assist someone in the act of voting. Have they already voted? And if they haven't voted yet, when will they vote? Those check boxes are all here. And so what you can do is every person that you can think of to call in your Get Out the Vote campaign, you can fill this out. And then if they say they're going to call next Wednesday, you've got that in the notes and you can follow up. You can call them on Thursday or Friday and said, hi, this is Rich. How you doing, Mary? Oh, great. You know, I'm calling to follow up. I cast my vote a couple nights ago and you were going to do it on Wednesday. Did you get that done? And she'll say yes or no. And if she says, no, I haven't, you know, you can say, well, gosh, you know, I hate to stop bugging you, and I'll stop bugging you as soon as you vote. And that's perfectly okay. Now there are ways you can tell if they voted or not, which we'll get to in a little bit. But what I encourage folks to do is to just sit down with a blank piece of paper and make a list of everyone you know, people that you do business with, your dry cleaner, your lawyer, your doctor, anyone you have a relationship with, anyone that you feel comfortable calling, your friends, your coworkers, your family members, and just write down the list. And then once you have that list written down, get out the vote form and put their information here. Or you can just use this to make the list. On each sheet, there's enough room for 2 people. So you can print off a bunch of these, or you can photocopy them, or do whatever you need to do. And then just start contacting them. That's all you have to do. I've seen a lot elections, particularly in smaller towns, where they're like for soil and water conservation districts, for park and rec boards, for fire and rescue boards, cemetery control boards, all of these positions have low vote turnouts. And I've seen the difference between winners and losers be 5 votes, 7 votes. You know, you can say that when it's 10 million people voting or 100 million people voting, 1 vote doesn't carry much weight. In these local elections, they absolutely do carry a lot of weight. And so every single vote counts. So that's important. Now, you also have some other resources. If you want to be a little more ambitious, you can contact your political party or even your county elections office. Again, I'm going to show you our Western Liberty Network website. I'll go to the home page and I'll click here on the Oregon flag because the Oregon elections are coming up. And you'll see the link. So if you live in Umatilla County, you'll go to the Umatilla link. And here you know who the county clerk is, what the telephone number is, what their email address is. You can email and call these people, and you can ask for a list of everyone who has voted in the district you're interested in. Sometimes they charge a small fee for this. Sometimes they provide it electronically and they don't charge a small fee. Sometimes they will give a list to the county political party. And if you're a member of a political party, you can contact your county party and see if they have this list. And what you can do is you can cross-index the list of people who have voted with the people on your list of people to call, and you can know that they voted or didn't vote. Sometimes they'll give you a list that looks a little bit like this. I'm going to put this up on the screen and I'm going to share this. This isn't an exact list, but this gives you an idea. This is the kind of list you would get from a county office or maybe from your political party. Here's Dennis Johnson. If I go over here, scrolled already all the way over to the left, I'll see their full name. And well, as you can see here, you've got mailing addresses. Some people have their ballots mailed out of state, but a lot of these are Oregons. And this is their, you know, numbers, whatever. It's a good list of voters. And you can use this to determine who's voted or not, because the list that you get from the county will tell you every day who has voted and who it hasn't. So you're able to track that. So I would recommend that you contact your political party first and find out if they have day-to-day lists of who has voted. Reconcile that with the list that you have of people to call. And maybe you'll get bold and decide you want to go beyond the people you know and do some calling. Because once you start making phone calls, it becomes easier. You know, the hardest phone call is typically, the hardest phone call to make is typically the first 4 or 5. People kind of lurch into motion, kind of like having a car that hasn't been run in a while. You start the engine, you start moving, you know, it's not always smooth. The engine will make some noises, it'll complain for a while. The car might even lurch. But, you know, as things get warmed up and the joints get loosened, the car travels much better. Making phone calls, getting people to vote is a lot like that. The first few will be the hardest ones. Then it gets easier. And then a lot of people discovered, you know, when I was working for a presidential campaign back in 2016, we had 132 volunteers making phone calls. And I discovered, much to my delight, that the volunteers, after being kind of reticent in the beginning, you know, decided they were good at it, decided they liked it, and they had fun, and they could not wait to start making calls by the time they had done a couple of dozen of these things. You might find that you're in that similar situation, and after you've called everybody on your list and followed up, you might want to expand and call some other people. And depending on the lists that your political party gives you, you may have the numbers to do that. And again, it makes a difference between winning and losing, especially in small turnout elections like this. Now, you might want to also prepare some messaging. If, for example, you are working to elect a slate of candidates or a ballot measure, you know, write that down, but keep it simple. don't have usually more than 3 major points to share with folks because people forget them, people cloud over. You don't want to keep them on the phone too long. That's another thing too. When people make get out of the vote phone calls to people that they know, there is oftentimes a tendency to start getting into a conversation. Well, now that as long as I got you on the phone, how's that new business of yours going? Has your daughter graduated yet? What's going on? And you end up blowing 20 minutes on a phone call. There's nothing wrong with making good social phone calls, but when you're doing get out the vote, get on the phone, deliver your message, get off the phone, go to the next one. Don't spend more than a couple of minutes with each call. If you want to talk about more things, just say, Uncle Tim, I really would like to have this conversation with you, but I've got to make 100 calls in the next couple of hours. So can we do this later? And generally people will understand that. So make sure you do not get yourself caught in debates or discussions or side conversations that slow you down, because the 2 or 3 phone calls you don't make because you're in those conversations could be the difference between victory and defeat for a number of local nonpartisan candidates. So make sure that you stay on the phone and you move through the calls. I have a question on the meeting chat. Is the document supposed to come through the meeting chat? Yep, I forgot to send the send button. There you go. So it looks like you've got it there. So there it is. You can download it and look at it at your pleasure. So if you're going to talk about things like, let's say you're making phone calls for a school board campaign and there are 3 candidates you've got, just work that in. I wouldn't go with a script. People don't like it when you say, hello, my name is Richard Burke. I am making this phone call for this slate thing. I mean, just be yourself. I encourage people to make main points. 1, make sure that they link the act of voting with their identity. 2, ask them if they have a plan to vote. If you've done those 2 things, you've accomplished most of your goal. If they're willing to talk another minute, say, I've got a few candidates I'd like to recommend to you. Smith, Jones, and Tyler. Oh yeah? Okay, well, here's why. But again, don't be on the phone too long. Or vote no against ballot measure 126-5 or whatever the measure is. And say, after you've gone through those items, is there anything else? Okay, I'll follow up in a couple of days, and hopefully you will have voted by then. And I really thank you for your time. God bless you. And hang up and go to the next call. So remember the psychology of getting people to vote. Tie it to their identity and make sure they have a plan to vote. Collect, organize, and prioritize your information. Make your lists of people to call. Use this to make the list or transfer it to this information after you've just made a list of names. Start calling them. Use this form to determine if they've got their ballot. When do they plan to vote? Use this to follow up a couple of days after they expect to vote. Use political party resources. If you're affiliated with a political party, ask them what they can do to help you, particularly getting day-to-day lists of people who have already voted so you don't waste time calling them. And then finally, before you even make a phone call, prepare your messaging. What do you want to tell them? What races do you want them to vote on? What names do you want them to remember? And just make the calls. It's interesting. Getting out the vote with a personal campaign like this is a little bit like playing the game of chess. If, say, you don't know how to play chess, I can sit in front of you with a chessboard and I can show you the moves that each of the pieces can make. And within about 20 minutes, you'll be capable of playing the game. But no matter what words I provide you with, no matter what training I provide you with, you're not going to become a good chess player unless you play, unless you actually play the game. Making getting out the vote phone calls is a lot like that. Training like I'm providing to you now can be very useful. This information and these tools can be very helpful. But you're not going to get good at it unless you make the calls. And the first few calls are going to be awkward. It's all right. If they are, that's fine. You know, if you're calling people you know, they'll understand. But once you made a number of calls, you'll become more comfortable. You'll become more fluent, and then you'll get good at it, just like someone who plays chess on a regular basis. Do not be intimidated by the process. Do not be intimidated by the idea you're interfering with somebody's life, because you're offering them the reminder that they have political power they can use in any way they like. So this is all important, and it's critical to the survival of our civic culture and our democratic republic. So that is my spiel on getting out the vote. Do you have any questions, Chris? Yeah, Chris, I can't hear you. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, so I just went on a long trip and met some fellow conservatives, and you know, I'm at the point where I tell them, voting is essential, obviously, but it's like no longer sufficient. And so they would say, well, what can I do? Because most people aren't necessarily phone banking or that kind of a thing. So you've given me a good idea for an answer to give them, is like, make sure you vote, obviously, and have a plan. Make sure that they have a plan. But also choose 3 to 5 of your friends. Not a big they vote, therefore they make a big difference. Because if every one of us goes and makes sure that 3 people vote, and those 3 people make sure that 3 people vote, so that could make a really big difference.
Yep, that's, I never promote these personal get out the vote campaigns as a substitute for the large get out the vote campaigns run by political parties and candidates. I always think of them as an augmentation of those efforts, because more people are willing to make those few 3 or 5 or 10 personal phone calls. I encourage people to try and call at least 10 people if they can. If they call 3, well, that's fine. That's 3 that didn't get called before, or even 1. But I encourage people to shoot for 10.
And I agree, but that's sort of like the way that I get their foot in the door,
right?
That it doesn't seem too onerous. They'll learn that it's really not that hard to do, and hopefully they'll call more. As you were saying, volunteers found out that it was fun or easy to do, but at the very least, get your foot in the door and call a couple.
That's right. Yep.
I hope that's not undermining what you're saying, but
no, not at all. It's
sort of like, because I've raised money. I've been in development with nonprofits.
Sure.
And people always say, oh, no, I can't ask for money. It's like, it's so easy, just ask. And part of that, again, is getting your foot in the door in terms of having experience to it.
I'm going to send you a private message here. I'm going to give you my number, because I may have some questions for you about that. So anyway, no, it doesn't undermine things at all. The idea is just to get people started, to get them doing it. And once they are making these phone calls, you're going to find that they'll be willing to do it. They'll be more willing to do it at the next election and the next election. And pretty soon you'll have a cadre of experienced and trained people that know how to run a get out the vote campaign. This is all about building. It's a process. It's a process. And you just got to continue to build it. So do you have any other comments or questions? Okay, well, that's our training today then. So it's a beautiful day outside. I don't know, where are you in the state, Chris?
I'm in Portland.
Okay, so you're in the same area I am. I'm in Tigard, so we've got a glorious day. I hope you get a chance to enjoy it. And for those who will be watching this recording, thank you for your attention. Don't forget, you can download the Get Out the Vote document right next to the video that you clicked on. And we'll be back next week with another training. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care. God bless.